Been in the market for about a decade, processing metadata signals with two core patents. One recognizing down to the curved pixel edge of every object and correlating that object to a SKU product match to make it more shoppable and shortening the path to purchase within video. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Greg.
Hi, Greg Stewart, CEO of the Marketing Media Alliance, a nonprofit for CMOs. We think marketing has room for improvement.
Great. Zach.
And I'm Zach Dugo, founder and CEO of The Cool Company. We've built an AI product called Cool AI, where with 2 clicks, we build out your ad creatives omni-channel. We buy the media omni-channel with AI and drive sales at the lowest possible price point for our brands and agencies.
I'm also pretty impressed, Zach, because now nobody can ever say you're not cool. It was a very smart move, very smart marketing move.
You nailed it. That was the whole impetus. It comes from my middle school years.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to ask the audience for a bit of a show of hands to start off, because we're going to talk about great ads, but I want to hear how you guys feel about ads. So I'd love to know who here skips an ad when they have the chance. You guys need to be honest too. Come on. Okay, about 50%, I'd say, skip ads. How many? I think some of you are lying, but I understand you want to keep your jobs. How many of you pay extra for streaming without ads? Okay, that's maybe slightly higher. And how many of you can think right now of a favorite ad you've had in your head for years because it stuck with you? And that one's pretty high. I feel like that one's almost everybody. So it feels like when you get an ad you don't hate, you really remember it. So guys, I'm going to start off talking about an ad that you really loved, that you remember. What's the last ad that really stuck in your head? Laurie, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, the last ad? Well, I don't want to get into that already because we're going to talk about the Mick Ultra Nick's out-of-home ad. But I will say personally one of my favorite ads was P&G's Like a Girl, which I want to say was a decade or so ago. But it wasn't necessarily how it showed up, but it was such a strong message that I think related to just culturally how women and girls feel in what has traditionally been just a man's world. And it hit so many of those elements that what make it stand out to you and the courage of a brand for taking a position like that. So that was, to me, one of those ads that I will just always remember.
Okay, Greg.
I would say, sorry, my glasses are talking. I think the one is because I'm a New Yorker and because the Knicks won, it was the ad that Nike did with the guy running down the street. I just thought that was such a powerful kind of thing, and there's a real coming together moment for New York, and for me, the world, it felt like, but then that's how New York always thinks of the rest of everybody else. So.
And if someone here didn't see it, because it's possible that someone lived under a stone for that week, tell us about the ad and why it was so powerful.
So basically what it was a kid just running through the streets of New York wearing a Knicks outfit, trying to get to where everybody was celebrating the sort of win. It really was just, there was something really incredibly powerful about that. And it really was, in some regard, no more than just them filming a kid running through the streets of New York at night. So, oh.
But it was the emotional hit.
It was amazing, yeah.
And the timing of it, right? I
Oh,
mean,
it was
to
just
be
they
able to
came
move
out-
that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly had planned ahead, but it was like, oh my God, it's just unbelievable, yeah, I thought.
And what about you, Zach?
For me, it's actually also a P&G ad. It was the Thank You Mom ad from the 2012 Olympics, where you have all of these kids who are prepping, and like there's a girl practicing gymnastics and a boy playing ice hockey. And actually, it's such a deep emotional hit for me that even when I watch it today, I still get teary-eyed. So it's like, also a relationship with my mom, but still, it's like they really did something special there, and I think clearly P&G has a really amazing content team.
And it's good there to hear you're not only cool, but you love your mum. This is a strong start on this panel.
He's so cool.
I know.
This is bringing it,
That's
this
so
is
cool.
family therapy
He's really
also.
showing you guys up.
Yeah, I don't even like my mom, so.
I know, it happens. But look, what I wanted to ask is, the title of this panel was Consumers Hate Advertising. Do you think that's actually true, or do they just hate bad advertising? Laurie?
I don't think consumers hate ads. I think they hate being interrupted. I think they don't like to be, if they're irrelevant. And I think we're seeing that more and more of the pay for streaming, the ad subscription model is working. So I think they understand the value exchange of ads. They just need to be more relatable to the content.
Can I take a different point of view? Listen, I actually agree with what you're saying, but I am also going to disagree, just here for a bit. I think that we have disrespected the relationship with consumers because too many of the ads don't have any relevancy to consumers. So I've probably done more research into advertising than almost anybody, and they're large public studies with no bias because I'm a nonprofit. I don't have commercial interest in the things that I do, or that the MMA does. And so I created multi-touch attribution to solve a media allocation problem. What I found was that 47% of campaigns by the biggest advertisers were dead on arrival. They failed to meet a motivation that mattered to consumers, and they failed to communicate a message that the consumer understood. And you have to get a motivation and message. If you don't get motivation and message, then the rest of it doesn't matter. The placement is irrelevant to what we're doing. And that was catastrophic failure to me. And I can go into lots more details of what's happening, why they did that, but the facts were the facts. The fucking ads didn't work.
Yeah, we actually did some research this past year with Growthing, and 43% of our respondents said that they would actually engage with an ad if it's relevant and whether it's shoppable or something that is relatable to the content that they're watching. So that whether it's an in-store purchase or a purchase or just a deeper down the decisioning tree. So we do know that consumers will engage with ads, but to your point, they need to be relevant to the moment that the consumer is in.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, right, all three of us up here referenced the ad that was most memorable to us was a deeply emotional experience, right? None of us were like, oh yeah, it was the ad from, such and such company that does a 72% lift on my ROI from this. And so I think where consumers hate is if they feel that instead of there's some type of emotional trigger that draws in the moment and where we are and where I am as an individual, and then I can receive subtly more about what are the benefits instead of don't just throw product stats at me.
No, I think you're right. Context is everything.
But hey, Ruth, if I say though, so listen, I agree, but I'm going to disagree.
I love that about you, Greg.
I know.
I know.
love
We're
this about you, Greg.
we're learning a lot about you.
But
That's
no,
what
I'm
makes
not
this panel
disagree. I
good.
love this.
I don't think, listen, I'm a little concerned, and I don't know the actual facts. I'm a little careful what I say. I'm get a little concerned that we attribute effectiveness to emotionality, and I love that. And it's, of course, what makes me feel human.
called branding.
So I'm bought in.
Branding.
However, I can communicate to consumer. Advertising tends to operate at the low processing level. It's in the background. I don't really pay attention to it. I don't register. I don't think about it per se. But it does work. Like my favorite is if you know, and I worked on Bounty for years. So if you know the Bounty thematic of that thing. So what happens, right? Kid spills something. Mom smiles, cleans it up. There's peace in the world again. Do you know how big a fucking deal that is? Who doesn't want to say, you fucking idiot kid, you dropped the fucking milk again, you ruined my fucking day, I'm late for PTA, right? That's really what's up. But Bounty prevents shame in families. That's the whole thematic. Now, nobody talks about the Bounty ad, and yet that's a very powerful concept about what's happening there in the background. So.
But it hit the emotion, right? It hit the frustration emotion.
Yeah, that's suppressed emotion.
We
It
all
suppressed
picked
the
emotional
emotion.
things that we reacted to and sort of visually saw and heard and could repeat. Nobody repeats the thing. That one is operating
Sure.
at a suboptimal, at an id level at some level. And who doesn't feel bad when they yell at their kids? Show of hands. Okay. What if you were kids
I
that were
don't
yelled
have
at?
any
How about
children,
you were
so I
kids that
don't
were
feel
yelled
bad
at?
when
We can
I-
go with that. Sorry, Ruth, so go ahead.
Yeah, Zach only feels bad when he yells at other people's children.
That's right.
Sometimes. No, look, and I think context is really important. Maybe context more so than emotion, because, for example, I know that every time I'm served an ad about back pain on Instagram, they know me deeply. That context is entirely correct to every minute of my life. But what difference do the different channels make? So whether you see an ad on social or TV or online, how differently do you have to behave as a brand?
I think this is a really interesting time because I do think social media has done a really good job of creating a one-to-one ecosystem between brands and their consumers. And I think the leveraging of influencers because I trust my influencer. I trust the people that I follow. And when brands can tell their story through someone I trust, I think that brands show up very differently in social today because they've been invited to have that one-to-one connection. I do think that television, streaming, whatever we want to call it, is a very different beast. And I think it's different when you're watching a live environment that you can't fast forward or skip versus an on-demand environment where you're either watching an ad because you've paid for an ad subscription or you're not watching ads because you've chosen to go ad-free. So I think those two different moments are, in television specifically, brands do have to show up to match that moment specifically. Sports, you can't fast forward, so if you're not relevant, if you're not capturing their attention, then people are going to turn around, they're going to go to the kitchen, they're going to go to the bathroom, they're going to do whatever. And then in a VOD environment, especially because you're interrupting their program, if you don't show up with a relevant message to match what they're there to experience, then I think you've missed the opportunity.
Right, Greg?
Yeah, you know, I don't have the research at hand. There is some research that really does suggest that context matters everything, and that the relationship to that context is a really big deal. And MMA is probably going to try and do some work around that. So as a thematic, I think it's a really big deal that we don't give enough credit to. And I think we get a little too focused on sort of targeting on an identity graph that appears to be complete bullshit. And so that's a whole nother sort of topic around the thing. So yeah, I just, you know, I do think there's a big opportunity there. I don't know that. I think sometimes we give it too much credit. I'll agree to disagree. I think sometimes we give it too much credit though for what it is. There's just more work that needs to be done around that context. I do agree with you around social media. So TikTok is by and far my #1 channel. There's just no question that I see more TikTok than any other media. And you know, there's a very particular style there that really does work. You know, like I never knew about Laura Piano until I saw the Gestalt guy. Gestalt. What's his name? I think I'm confusing that a little bit. But I mean, that's an incredibly powerful way that he does that, and has now become a big brand ambassador for them. It's very interesting, and I have a real clarity what that brand means. But they did it in a way that's accepted. I see, all due respects to my Popeyes on my board, what they're doing there is just, it's not the right thing. It's an ad in TikTok. That's not right. So, I don't know, my sense.
And what about you, Zach?
Yeah, I think even a bit more about what Lori was saying, the one-to-one relationship. A big part of also what we do is dynamic creative. You're getting a different creative if it's sunny versus if it's raining, and people's reaction. So that I can get an ad, Greg can get a different ad, Lori can get a different ad, all within the same kind of brand guidelines. Like, so if Greg gets an ad that says, I agree and I disagree, and then I get something
He will
different.
pay attention.
I'm just teasing, Greg. Then we're all going to have different reactions to that.
No, I agree. And context, Zach brought up a good point there, which is that context is broader than just what's the adjacent content, which, you know, I think I had not put in. I agree with him, yeah. So.
Okay, good. Do you also disagree, Greg? Just checking.
Not yet.
Clever, keep us on our toes. So, Laurie, you mentioned something interesting there, sport and the live experience, because we're in a summer of sport. We just had the Knicks win. We're in the middle of the World Cup. Go Knicks, go Knicks.
Thank you. Absolutely.
So talk to me about how brands and ads show up in sport and live sport particularly.
So there's two examples. One is the one that we were talking about earlier. If anyone saw I'm sure you did, but the Mick Ultra ad, Lynn brought that, reminded me this morning. They had this amazing out of home in Times Square with Frazier the legend and Brunson passed. So he's passing the trophy, the MVP forward, and I thought that was such a spectacular way to take a sports cultural moment out of the live stream, but to take that cultural moment and run with it. I thought that was a spectacular example. From a live sports perspective, in streaming, I think the Super Bowl has done a fantastic job, or maybe it's our community that has done a fantastic job of spinning the Super Bowl into you need to watch the commercials. And I love that brands show up into the Super Bowl as their Super Bowl. I wish they would take that creative insight and the creative storytelling that they put so much investment in and use that year-round, because I think that those are the ways that you do capture consumers' attention, because they're there to watch the story. It's relevant to the moment that they're watching, And I think that that's what gets consumers engaged.
Yeah, I think we need to get away from this model. Listen, I grew up in the broadcast. I was a media planning guy, so I bought NBC, CBS, et cetera, out of the U.S. And there we were forcing intrusion on. We basically held consumers hostage for 17 minutes out of 60 minutes of programming, which is sort of silly. And I don't think consumers generally would accept. Although in sports, we do, they sort of manage it better or something. But it really does come back to, did the ad matter to those people? And then did it hit did it hit a motivation that mattered? Did it hit a message that the consumer would understand, interpret, and sort of take on? I think is still the big deal. So I don't, I think sports is still relying on that old model, which is that we force opportunity, which I think digital has largely moved away from. So.
You actually brought up a really good point, because I think there's many people that have to play a role here. The publishers have to be able to create an ecosystem that allows for better experiences. So whether it's squeeze backs, right? So you can keep the game up there and give a brand an opportunity to kind of surround the story. So I do think that the publishers, the broadcasters do have a responsibility to innovate. And then the ad tech partners like Cool and Curve, we do need to show up with better experiences to allow consumers to engage more deeply with the brand when they show up. Yeah. So whether it's a QR code, whether you're using your remote to interact, do a poll, to play around, I think that that's where we're excited to see how we as an industry continue to evolve. But it's not just brands showing up to make it a more relevant moment. We need all to play together.
Yeah, I think broadcasters for years were disrespectful of the consumer experience because they would show me ads that didn't matter. Like, what the fuck is Skyrizi? Really? Anybody?
Oh,
Do
I love
care?
that, Greg.
I see a lot of ads, so it must be important to me. I don't know.
It's my favorite. How could you? Okay, so if that's how it's working in the live sports environment, let's talk a little bit about the impact of AI. And going to start with you here, Zach, and then I'd love everybody else's perspective. What are the opportunities of how AI can make the ad experience better rather than worse?
So one great thing that we're seeing across the board is there's the rapid ability to do thousands of variations of tests within minutes, if you will. And that's part of what our Cool AI product does, that our creative AI, as well as the buying. And so imagine you have all these different ideas you want to try out, and thousands that you didn't. And then I can look at historically what has translated into an amazing kind of brand experience, amazing conversions. And for a long time, as we've talked about AI, it's been faster and cheaper, but not better. But I think better is very, very, very close. So we actually launched something called the Cool AI Challenge, where people would get shown 8 ads in front of them, and if they could pick out which one was created by AI, they'd get $1,000. And if they didn't, they'd have a bucket of water poured on their head. And we're actually launching that in the next 2 weeks. Spoiler alert, most people got it wrong because it's so difficult, because AI is getting so strong and so smart. It's being able to translate that into experiences where we're kind of blown away. And I think you're going to see a lot of pushback from that, because it's a scary thing, because it means, what does that mean for a lot of people? But I think AI is getting to a point soon where it'll be not just faster, cheaper, but it legitimately is better.
Can I double down on Zach's thing? So I'll take it to a whole nother level. And listen, I'm independent. I have no commercial interest in what I'm about to tell you. As a nonprofit trader, so my job is just to figure out what's good for marketers. So we have been working with a machine learning technique to understand the value of personalization, which is, I think, what you're saying in your thing. And we have found across the 30 brand studies we've done some around the world, that on average, the performance boost by personalization is plus 160%. That's 2 to 3x. And we've seen it as high as 272% we did for AT&T, and that was against sales. So MMA is a huge believer in personalization, which basically means creating variations of ad that tap into different need states, not actual sort of, don't change the brand, but to different need states, and then find cohorts that you can optimize against those. And what's interesting is that we did one ad for Shell that had Formula One in it, and for example, a driver had gone to the hospital, one of the main drivers had gone to the hospital, and that ad is a mix of Formula One ads spiked versus all the other ads. Humans could never take that on. They could never optimize at that speed or that level. So I think the concept is personalization, not per se, I mean, we talk about AI, that's fine. And you can only do it through AI. But the idea of personalization, which is, I think, where we all got to get to as an industry.
And just to double down on what Greg was saying in terms of conversions, like I was on stage at Possible talking about NVA, one of our customers who's seen more than a doubling in ROAS. That personalization through AI, because it's just not possible to do it at a human speed, is going to continue to accelerate and drive impactful results. And I think people will either get behind that or they'll sadly get left behind.
In fact, I think marketers who aren't doing personalization should be fired. I mean, it's really, honestly.
Greg doesn't have controversial opinions at all.
Not you personally. I'm just saying she reacted to that.
No, he doesn't. Greg's very clear. He's an all-out hater.
Yeah, exactly.
Hater of bad marketing. And you guys should be too, Laurie.
Let me take it one step further because I do think so dynamic creative, right? Show up. Personalization is key. I actually think that the one step further that AI, at least that Curve is doing, is correlating the right message to the right time, right? So there's one thing about how do I take personal data about the consumer and deliver that personalized message, but then it's also how do you correlate the message to the moment that the consumer just experienced and the mindset that they're in. And so I think if brands can learn how to balance both personalization and correlation, that's how they win with using today's data signals and AI capabilities. And when you say matching the moment, I use this example a lot, so I apologize if you've heard it, but like there are many food shows and kitchen shows, but there can be a beautiful kitchen scene with a family touching moment, and how a brand shows up there is very different than a very competitive, heated kitchen scene. I always use the Seven Fishes episode from The Bear, which is super intense. And you as a brand would show up very differently. In theory, you're just going to say, oh, I want a kitchen scene, right? No, they're very different in how that brand should show up.
And with AI, how much do you think consumers need to know? Because this is something I think a lot. How much do you need to know that your ad is being personalized through AI? And how much is it okay just to enjoy the experience?
I don't know.
My guess is that it's going to be unnecessary in the future because everything will be personalized through AI a year from now or 2 years from now. So that'll just become a default setting in the future.
I think from a consumer's perspective, they don't know what's happening in the background. They have no idea how the ad got there. I think where consumers are starting to pay attention is around generative AI and the use of creative. So if they see something that might be off or that may sound like somebody but isn't, I think that's where consumers are starting to get a little concerned because that's what's been in the press, that's what's kind of out there.
And just if I just to add to that, so this has been a big discussion amongst the CMOs of the MMA board. In fact, the most recent board meeting, we got into this whole thing, and it was not universally agreed if we needed to disclose that the ad was created by AI. There were some people that thought from a safety position, it's probably better to do that now just to cover ourselves, but it's not going to matter in the future. At some point, it's all, we'll be used to it, and we won't care.
I think where consumers are more concerned is about content. Like naturally, us brand marketers, we're going to make sure things are trying to hit a target market, but more like if I'm seeing a statement about a political statement or about weight loss or some new pill, like I need to know, was this created by AI? Is probably more of an area of focus for consumers and concern than the brand messaging.
I just want to add one more thing because I think that is so true, but when I'm in social today, I have to validate every single ad I see by going to Google and saying, is this brand real? Is this product real? Does it really do what it says it does? And 99.9% of the time, it doesn't. So I do think that there are bad actors in our industry that allow these non-validated ads for the sake of ad revenue that
Like,
needs to be challenged.
It's kind of a variation in like CVS and other advertisers throwing down like we're not
We
going to
would
retouch
never
photos.
get away with that in
They
broadcast.
don't retouch ads anymore, and Sephora, I'm pretty sure they've said absolutely we would not use real people and real photos, not doctored photos. So I think it's probably different for different brands at some level, but it's kind of a big outstanding question. I don't know that there's another shoe that's going to drop that somebody's going to get in massive trouble over it. I can't tell, but it's an issue, a discussion. Just that's why you raise it. So.
100%. And I know we only probably have a few minutes left on this panel. So I was going to ask each of you guys if there was something that you could leave everyone in the room with that they should do tomorrow to change how they're thinking about marketing, their ads, personalization. What would it be? Zach, unfortunately, you nodded, which looked like you had an answer.
I looked down.
I think there's a lot.
But Ruth, the question is, what's the one thing we got to do? Is that what she said?
Yeah,
Like,
what's the one thing you got to do tomorrow?
What's the one thing
Okay,
marketers
Monday.
should do?
Monday.
I was
Let's
gonna
be
say,
realistic.
Yeah, because tomorrow was drink rosé.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then the day after that,
Also
Drink
drink
more
rosé.
Drink
Rosé.
rosé and then recover from the rosé.
Okay, so next Monday, what's the first thing these guys should do to make their ads better?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, there's still a lot of brands that we talk to that are not utilizing AI, even to understand like performance or match up their creatives. And it really can take 30 seconds to take what you're doing and throw it into ChatGPT or Claude or Grok. Be like, take a look at my marketing plan. Take a look at my brand's performance. I'm not even talking about the stuff that we do where we're driving performance through buying and the creative all combined through AI, but just getting an analysis and having somebody tell you, here's how other beauty brands are converting. Here's how your plan looks in comparison to others. Just that in itself, I think, can give an eye-opening to a lot of different brands.
So you're saying effectively audit what you do. The tools are out there. You can do a really easy audit very quickly.
Very quickly, yes.
Okay, great. Laurie.
Ooh, she skipped you. 'Cause,
Yeah. We're going to
you're
end
gonna
with you,
disagree.
Greg.
Mine is simple, and because I come from the sales side, invest a minimum of 10% of your budget in innovation. Like, I constantly hear, we don't have innovation budgets this quarter. We're not doing any innovation. You have to start innovating now because you're going to be left behind. What's in market today is valid, it's ready, it's measurable. You've got to start testing innovation, even if you're uncomfortable.
Perfect. Innovate today or you're dead tomorrow. Greg.
and I already gave my answer earlier. It says if you're not doing personalization, and by the way, personalization is really
And correlation.
hard. What's that?
And correlation. You got to add that too.
Well, it's all same concept. It's all personalization of creative with different sort of orientations to ads, then to different cohorts of audiences and stuff. And none of that requires using first-party data, at least that we found. I think there's maybe bigger opportunity, but you don't have to. But no, you really have to do that and recognize it's hard. Like, what's the creative brief when there's no finished ad? Like, there's so many questions that need to be answered on that journey for your brands and for the industry at large that really get started now. Because if you're going back to do that Monday or you're not doing that Monday, then you should be fired on Tuesday. I mean, I think it's really that big a deal, people. It's just my experience. And again, I don't sell an AI personalization product. I'm just telling you from the research we've seen, it's an incredibly powerful concept. And back to the whole piece of this panel, and it's respectful of consumers. Don't try to sell me a product with an orientation that I don't care about. Sell me what matters to me. Make sure you're clear on what's going to be relevant to me to help me in making decisions at the 1,500 ads I get a day.
I think that's an excellent point that goes back to something Zach said, which is how can tech and personalization make your ads better, not just more. And I think that's a great place to leave it with three people who I'd say, even Greg, clearly love ads. So please put your hands together.
Thank you,
Laurie.
Ruth.